Hello, my name is Mike Martinez, and I'm going to be analyzing the personality of Adolf Hitler today. We're going to start off with his early life. All right, he was born in Braunau am in Austria on the 20th of April, 1889. He was the son of Alois and Clara Hitler. His father worked at a government job in Austria, and his mom was your typical stay-at-home mom. It is reported that throughout Hitler's childhood, he had fits of crying and screaming very often. He had a very mediocre performance at school. He was a social loner. He had a deep passion for art and aspired to be an artist one day. And strangely enough, he also longed to be German as opposed to Austrian. We're going to be starting off the analysis from the psychoanalytic perspective, which is a personality theory based on the writings of Sigmund Freud, which placed heavy emphasis on the unconscious processes of the mind. So some of the things of the psychoanalytic perspective that we're going to touch on are the psychosexual stages. Basically, what these stages are the development of the human psyche as well as libido as we progress through life, and these are broken up into 5 stages respectively. The first stage is the oral stage, which infants are driven to satisfy the drives of hunger and thirst. Following that, we have the anal stage, where the child receives pleasure from relieving themselves of bodily waste. The third is the phallic stage, where the child gains pleasure through the genitals. Males develop an Oedipus complex and also castration anxiety. The latency stage is psychosexual energy, which is channeled into academic and social pursuits. And lastly, the genital stage, where the individual gains satisfaction from mature sexual relationships. It's very important to know that over and under gratification in any one of these 5 stages can lead to a fixation in that stage. And these fixations are as follows. If someone is orally fixated, they develop a dependency and preoccupation with oral acquisition. So an everyday example of this would be someone that chews gum excessively, smokers, people that walk around with toothpicks in their mouth. Anal fixations include preoccupation with neatness. There's 2 types of anal fixations. There's anal retentive and anal expulsive. Anal retentive people have extreme order. They're like they can be considered neat freaks, that kind of thing. And then anal expulsive people are the opposite. They're just very disorganized, sloppy, that kind of thing. Phallic fixations include vanity, narcissism, and an inability to love. Latency fixations actually does not apply. There is no fixations in this stage. And genital fixations, again, do not apply. People only reach the genital stage if they successfully pass through each previous stage. And the only thing that can come of it is normal sexual behavior and relationships. Secondly, in the psychoanalytic perspective, we're going to talk about defense mechanisms. These are the unconscious mental processes that help us avoid conscious conflicts or anxiety. So we're going to be touching upon denial, which is the refusal to acknowledge anxiety-provoking stimuli. An example of this is a loved one of yours dies and you don't acknowledge their death. You just pretend it's not there. Projection, which is attributing anxiety-provoking impulse of thoughts to others. An example of this is someone who's always suspicious as others, and people that use this defense mechanism also tend to have extreme political opinions. And lastly, rationalization, which is creating logically, socially acceptable explanations for behaviors which were actually driven by unconscious impulses. And a classic example of this is lying and justifying a situation. Hitler and the phallic stage. Hitler had a strong Oedipus complex, and basically what an Oedipus complex is an unconscious desire to be with your mother, right? And you have a deep-rooted hatred for your father, so you unconsciously try to murder your father to get him out of the picture so you could be with your mother. All right? Hitler had an extremely close relationship with his mother. He favored her over his father as a child greatly. He was never quite able to bond or relate to his father, and in fact hated everything that his father stood for. He resented his father greatly for not supporting him and his endeavors in art, and was relieved when he died. Hitler was fixated in this stage greatly. He had a difficult time building meaningful relationships with anyone because he was so overly attached to his mother. In an article, it was said that he viewed his mother as the perfect embodiment of everything a woman should be, which made it hard for him to be with any other woman. Also, going along with the aforementioned fixations in this stage, after Hitler's death, he preferred his own company and was self-described as an egotist. Hitler's defense mechanisms, we're going to start with projection. Hitler was devastated when he discovered Germany had lost the Great War. He felt as though it was not defeat on the battlefield, but defeat from a stab in the back from within Germany from the socialists, Jewish community, and communists. Because of these beliefs, Hitler projected his anger about Germany's loss onto these populations of people in the future to come. Hitler also was in denial about a lot of things. He viewed himself as unstoppable when he was the leader of Germany. He intended only to fight a single front war on the east. However, when France and Britain declared war on Germany, he was now fighting a two-fronted war, but was still confident that he could control the situation. He then sent a good portion of German troops to the Soviet Union during the winter months in the hope of squashing the Soviets, a move that would prove to set Germany into downfall. However, Hitler was still unfazed and viewed himself as unstoppable. Rationalization. Hitler was able to justify his final solution by promoting anti-Semitic beliefs for years prior, blaming the Jewish people for Germany's shortcomings, and by preaching that the Aryan race was superior to all others. All right, next we're going to move on to the neo-analytic perspective, which is neo-Freudian beliefs which still emphasized the unconscious processes, but disagreed with some of Freud's theories and beliefs. So we're going to start off with Alfred Adler and the superiority complex. People can develop an inferiority complex after some experience renders them powerless. An inferiority complex exaggerates normal feelings of shortcomings in any aspect of life. A classic example of this is you have a sibling. Your sibling makes the honor roll, but you don't, so you feel inferior. Someone with an inferiority complex may develop a superiority complex to battle the latter. In doing so, they are able to maintain some sense of worth. The second aspect of this perspective that we're going to talk about is organ inferiority. And this is the concept that Adler developed, which basically states that everyone is born with a physical weakness that affects the way they make choices. People often make choices on things that will compensate for this weakness. And lastly, the aggression drive, also by Adler. This is the concept that aggression stems from the inability to achieve something. So Hitler's superiority complex. He was rejected from art school twice, which made him feel incredibly inferior. From a young age, he also felt inferior due to his nationality. He wanted to be German more than anything. Because of his failure at pursuing art and his Austrian background, he joined the army in the hopes of finding some sort of consolation. When he rose to power, he developed an extreme arrogance and superiority complex and felt as though he was unstoppable. Hitler's organ inferiority. Hitler's medical records show that he suffered from right side cryptochidism, or an undescended right testicle. Hitler had trouble maintaining serious relationships with women. This could be over an embarrassment of his condition, This could have also influenced his role as a leader. In my opinion, his thirst for power was his way of compensating for his lack of manhood. Lastly, Hitler's aggression. I believe that his aggressive behaviors stemmed from a childhood of helplessness and a physically and mentally abusive father. Hitler never tried to fight back with his father as a child. He saw no way out other than to wait for his father to die, which he did. And lastly, Hitler was never able to achieve his dream of going to art school, which could also lead to his aggression. All right, that is all for this presentation. I appreciate your time, and I hope you gained a deeper understanding into the mind of Adolf Hitler.